Welcome to the first short recap video in our search for the greatest TV character ever. If you've never seen any of my videos, I encourage you to check my channel. We've picked 5 characters from popular shows and viewed them through many different personality, intelligence, and character lenses. So far, we've picked House MD, Elizabeth Jennings, Jesse Pinkman, Christopher Duncan Turk, and Jessica Jones. So the real question, is there really a point to finding who the best character of all time is? I mean, this is all subjective. My opinion doesn't really mean squat.
Okay, Scooter.
See, I'm a big nerd. I truly enjoy thinking about TV characters as if they're real people that walk among us. And beyond that, I like to think how they react in certain situations that we never got to see them in their shows. Like, how would House react if he was picked to be the best man at a wedding? How would Turk react if he was approached by a mugger in an alley? How would Elizabeth react if she won the lottery? I told you, I'm a dork.
Here's some money, go see a Star Wars.
I also really enjoy thinking about these characters' personalities and comparing them to one another, such as how they'd score on an IQ test or rate on a popular personality test. Are they the life of the party, or are they a loner? Are they easily irritated, or are they able to control their emotions? There's a lot of questions we could ask, but the biggest problem with all of this is how can you effectively put a number to something that's not tangible? This is what we call psychometrics, which is the scientific discipline that determines how non-tangible constructs can be related to observable, tangible outcomes. Think of a soccer field. Obviously, they do vary in size, but we know that on average, they're around 100 to 110 meters long. How do we know that? Well, because we could put a tape measure at one side and run it down the length of the field. This is a tangible construct. Psychological traits like intelligence, irritability, and level of chess skill are non-tangible constructs. We can't look at a person and see how good they are at chess or their level of neuroticism. We can measure their height, their weight, their eye color, but non-tangible concepts are a matter of opinion, unless, of course, we try to measure them. And this is the basic principle of psychometrics. Tests and assessments are given to try to measure someone's trait presence of a non-tangible construct. So in this series, I'm connecting my love of television and my knowledge of psychometrics to give a true deep dive of our characters' inner workings. I think it's interesting to use evidence and inferences to assume how these characters would score on these tests and assessments. Because when you measure 2 people, one scores a 30% and the other scores a 90, it's safe to say that the 90% scorer is better at chess, as long as the test is accurately testing both participants' knowledge and skills of chess. And that's where we are now. If House scores higher on the Wonderlic exam than Turk, we can infer that House has a higher IQ. If Jessica Jones and Jesse both took an exam that measured neuroticism levels, we infer that Jessica scores higher, which means she can't control her emotions as well as Jesse. And while it's impossible to know exactly what anyone's exact score or percentile is on any of these traits, psychometrics and assessments are our best attempt to know. I don't know if House has an IQ of 150 or more, but we're making our best inferences from what the show gives us. Now that we've got this out of the way, let's do some comparative analysis of our 5 beloved characters. Let's talk about IQ again. I think my rating of Jesse might have been a little harsh. Maybe he should be slightly higher, sure. But the other 4 characters are above average intelligence, some being way above. I think there might be 1 two characters in all of TV ever that are at House's level of IQ. But House is so smart, it's almost unrealistic. I think Elizabeth is a more realistic intelligence. Let's sum up all 9 subcategories of intelligence just to see who gets the highest. Interesting. Even though House has a much higher IQ than Elizabeth, their sum of intelligences shows that IQ isn't always the best indicator. And look at Turk as well. Personalities. Who's likely to get along among these 5? I think Jessica and House might like each other, since they're almost the same person. I think that the other 3 are so different from each other, I can't see any of them ever being friends. Elizabeth is a no-nonsense bullshit type of woman, and I don't think she'd appreciate Turk's sense of humor or Jesse's lack of conviction and, well, skill of anything. I think Turk would probably think Jesse's cool, but I don't think that they have much in common. Let's set up a few scenarios now and play who is most likely to. First, who's most likely to get drunk and throw up at a party? Registered your guess? In my opinion, this is definitely House. House has the least amount of self-control, besides maybe Jessica, and House definitely doesn't give a shit. Who's the most likely to become president? Christopher Turk, all the way. He's charismatic, smart, and lovable. Who of our 5 would be most likely to survive on an island by themselves? This one, I think, would be down to Jessica or Elizabeth. But I'd give the edge to Jessica. She's strong, resourceful, and could get by better than the others with her strength. Who would be the best motivational speaker? Well, we could take House out, for sure. I also think that Elizabeth and Jessica would hate that type of limelight, so definitely not them either. I put this one down to Jesse or Turk, with the clear advantage going to Turk. He's much more extroverted than Jesse, but Jesse has creativity and heart, so he definitely would be decent too. Who could start their own successful business? Definitely Jesse. He has good ideas and an entrepreneurial spirit, with that creativity I mentioned. Who's most likely to win a marathon?
Marathon.
What?
The marathon.
The what?
The marathon? The what?
Turk, Jessica, and Elizabeth all have excellent prowess. I think between the 3 of these, Elizabeth would win. She's dedicated and has undying tenacity and spent years honing her physical abilities. Who would win a Nobel Peace Prize of the 5? I think the only one possible of this type of achievement would be House. Not that he'd do the paperwork or, well, work to do it at all. Who would be the most technologically proficient? I'd say this one is probably a tie between House and Elizabeth, but I'll give the edge to House, based solely on his IQ. Who's the biggest gamer? House, Jesse, and Turk are all seen playing video games in their shows, but I'd say Jesse is probably the biggest one. And lastly, who would win in a fight if all of them had to fight each other? I'd say that Jessica easily wins this one, but think of it this way. If she didn't have super strength and it was based solely on fighting ability, I think Elizabeth would destroy her. The final part of this video, I wanted to mention a few changes that are coming to this series. Some big and some small. The first small adjustment I wanted to make was to a particular character's Neo PIR rating. Somebody in the comments very intelligently pointed out that House is a lot more neurotic than I rated him. I gave House a 25th percentile, but upon more review, he is definitely substantially higher than this. So with that being said, I'm going to change House's neuroticism from 25th to 80th. Another small change I'm going to make is that I'm going to spend less time defining some of the things we've talked about so far. Myers-Briggs, IQ, the big 5 traits. Instead of defining each one and spending half of the time talking about what it is, we're going to focus more on just the characters and how they rate. Videos might be a little bit shorter, but they'll be more full of good stuff and less definition filler. A big change that's coming is the metrics. I'm going to change 2 of them. Writing quality will be no longer called as such. Instead, we're going to change it to character development. Instead of talking about quality of the writers and what they did for the character, we're going to focus more on how original and well thought out the arc of our characters are. Also, we're going to be removing Carrie Factor at the request of a lot of people and upon personal reflection. Instead, we're going to change that metric to cultural impact. These 2 are better representative of what it means to be the best character ever. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've had 5 characters we've finished. We have to know how they've done on these new metrics. So instead of spending a lot of time talking about this, here we are. This obviously shakes things up a little bit, but I think this is a better path forward for the series. One final change. In the personality analysis of each review, we have historically looked at Wonderlic. Since we already review the character's IQ, let's drop that part and talk about something different instead. Emotional intelligence refers to an individual's ability to recognize, understand, and manage their emotions along with others. I'll also retroactively score each of our 5 as we get into our next characters. I'm really excited about the future of this channel. I've got 3 really great characters lined up that are really going to be fresh and new. I'm going to do my best to keep things original and fun and not rant endlessly like I've done before, like some stupid English professor spouting stats. I want this to be an introspective, interesting look into our favorite characters that we've spent decades watching, thinking about, talking about with our friends. Thanks for tuning in. I can't put into words how excited I am at the next character I'm working on. See you all soon.